I'm going to introduce sort of the Ka Iwi briefing team, Liz Reilly and Gary Weller.
So yes, I'm vice chair of the Hawaii Kai Neighborhood Board, and Gary also is on the Hawaii Kai Neighborhood Board. But today I speak to you as a community member. Today is going to be specifically focusing about the Ka Iwi coastline. I actually prepared something that I want to read. I ordinarily don't read, but there's so much chock full of great stuff here. Saving the Ka Iwi coast has been a 30-year battle, that if you could just oblige me and allow me occasionally to look up and make sure I get through this material, I think by the time we're done and then we move to Gary, who's going to be doing a video presentation, you'll have a good sense of what it was that our predecessors did. A good sense of why it is moving forward we have to remain vigilant. Okay? All right, so 15 years ago, the Honolulu City Council was poised, actually it's about 20 years ago, the Honolulu City Council was poised to approve a proposed luxury housing development on an artificial berm across Kalaniani'ole Highway from Sandy Beach. It was a proposal that alarmed many Oahu residents who saw that it meant the eventual urbanization of Oahu's most accessible and spectacular wild coast. What happened in April of 1987 triggered a wave of grassroots efforts and historic events that eventually led to the open space protection of the undeveloped land between Koko Head and Makapu'u. That wave swept up just about everyone in it, from Honolulu's leading politicians to the Hawaii Supreme Court, to Bishop Estate, to the legislature, to the neighborhood boards, and to thousands and thousands of regular folks. In early 1987, an array of organizations and individuals lined up at City Council hearings to oppose the proposed development. 211 luxury homes on the 31-acre parcel. The uproar included tour bus operators, labor unions that service the visitor industry, artists, and watchdog organizations like the League of Women Voters, Hawaii's Thousand Friends, Life of the Land, Sierra Club, and scores of concerned citizens from all parts of Oahu. At the same time, a majority at the City Council was intent on deal-making with developers. They ignored the cry and, on April 15th, voted 5-4 to approve the project. Their deaf ear to the public sentiment ignited the flame of citizen activism. After the council vote, a loose group of people held a meeting to figure out what to do. They met again and again and again. They decided to turn back the council's action, and they planned to upturn the development. And they have used a three-pronged strategy. The first was by going to court to challenge the legality of council's action. This, of course, would slow down the implementation of council's decision and buy time to organize the community's clear support for open space at Sandy Beach. To do this, the Sandy Beach Defense Fund was organized. Second, by organizing an initiative drive that would allow voters on Oahu to overturn the council's action. For this campaign, the Save Sandy Beach Initiative Coalition was created. And third, by getting government support to plan and dedicate the entire coastline from Koko Head to Makapu'u for open space. For this, the Ka Iwi Scenic Shoreline Committee began to meet. Three-pronged approach. All three efforts were initiated and carried out by a small, fluid group of about a dozen volunteers. At any one time, they would just meet, and there'd be probably not more than about 7 to 12 people. They would meet on a weekly basis, and they would always operate on consensus building. Meetings were public and open to all. The group had critical support from a few key politicians, particularly then council members Marilyn Bornhorst and Gary Gill. While the Defense Fund retained an attorney to fight the City Council's action in court, the Initiative Coalition hit the streets with an army of petition circulators who obtained 40,000 signatures in 10 weeks. In September of 1987, the signatures were verified and the petition certified, setting the stage for the Sandy Beach Initiative election in the fall of 1998. Does anybody remember that?
Yes.
Okay. The developers and landowners, Bishop Estate, tried very hard to stop the election. At one point, their lawyers attempted to subpoena 53 of the petitioners, petition signers. After nearly a year of high-profile court action, the Hawaii Supreme Court allowed the election to go forward as part of the November 1988 general election. The campaign was intense, with the Bishop Estate spending $10,000 a day during the final month on a last-ditch media campaign urging the public to vote no. The coalition battled back with a low-budget media and grassroots campaign that said yes. Opinion polls showed strong support across the board for the initiative. Of all ethnic groups on Oahu, Hawaiians showed the strongest support. Both daily papers endorsed the initiative, as did the neighborhood boards island-wide, and 81 candidates running in federal, state, and local elections. On election day, voters across the island resoundingly supported the initiative, voting 2-1 to downzone the property from residential to preservation. It was a huge victory for citizens, activism, and of course for the environment. The developers and Bishop Estate immediately went back to court to overturn the election. And in May of 1989, the Supreme Court struck down the Sandy Beach Initiative. Furthermore, the court stripped the voters in all 4 counties of their land use initiative voting rights. The court's ruling must be remembered as one of the most decisive and anti-democratic power plays in an ongoing saga of land and power in Hawaii. Several weeks later, the City Council, bowing to the public sentiment, voted unanimously to downzone the Sandy Beach parcels from residential to preservation. The developer immediately contested that downzoning in court. With Sandy Beach protected, but land use initiative lost, the coalition went to the state legislature to ask that the state law be amended, pursuant to the Supreme Court ruling to restore the voters' rights. The coalition was energized by poll numbers which showed that the rock-solid majority of the public wanted their voting rights back. But the legislators, with ties to Bishop Estate, with all due respect, and other major landowners and development industry, I imply nothing, banks and construction unions proved to be immovable obstacles. After 3 years of exhausting lobbying and grassroots work, from 1989 to 1992, the coalition gave up. At the time, the land use ordinance allowed for this type of development to be permitted solely at the discretion of the Department of Planning and Permitting. No public hearing, no neighborhood board meeting, no nothing. Just an application and reviewed by the director, and poof, it could happen. Well, while the public applied pressure directed towards the mayor and the DPP, Councilman Dejoux, with some members of the community, quickly worked to changing the land use ordinance to include public participation. The technicality was it went from conditional use permit minor to conditional use permit major. It may seem minor, but it's major. All about including the public involvement.
You did that.
And I must say that we did that brilliantly with the support of the Department of Planning and Permitting. And it moved very easily through City Council. So that was just an amazing chess move that we are forever indebted to Councilman Dejoux for championing. Okay, so during this time, I personally had the opportunity to meet with the landowner's agent. And this would be the landowner's agent who wants to build the cabins in Mauka. I sat with him for a couple of hours, and I listened to his plan. And he told me something that I thought was the most valuable piece of information I had heard in a long time. And it made me realize that this is what this man's hanging his hat on. This is where he gets his confidence from. And this is why he wants to do this project. He told me that the Ka Iwi Makai lands are urban. That if the state was serious about protecting the coast, they would have changed the land use designation, which they never did. What happened in 2002? Well, it took several months for me. Nobody believed me. It took several months to confirm that those lands were still in urban. And then, in
State
2009.
land use.
State land was
But
urban.
the city could change in preservation.
Yeah.
The state
Good
needed to
point.
change it into conservation back in 2002. So all of that effort needed to be finalized through the paperwork. Something happened, I don't know what. So here we are in 2006, and we have a mainland developer thinking, hey, if that's urban, I'm up on the mountain, I think I could do this. So in 2009, with the help of Senator Hemming, urging the Office of Planning, Abby Mayer, we developed a plan to finish what was started over 30 years ago. In my opinion, it was all paperwork that basically fell through the cracks. But it did call for resources from the state at a difficult time for the Office of Planning to go through the process. So to that, we're very grateful to Linda and our governor, Linda Lingle, as well. So now, 29 years later, the state formalizes the protection status of 215 acres on the Ka Iwi scenic shoreline by reclassifying it on the land use maps from state urban district to state conservation district. The change was requested again, as I indicated, by the state's Office of Planning, where they presented their petition to the Land Use Commission at an April 8th, 2010 public hearing. The commission unanimously approved the request, and nobody knows this, but the attorney on behalf of the state came to me afterwards, and he had said he never enjoyed anything more than being a part of that process. Everybody had smiles on their face. It was just a good thing happening. Okay, longtime coalition leader and spokesman Phil Esterman, who has since said that the reclassification guarantees the integrity of the entire Cocoa Head to Makapu'u coast, and has reflected on the fact that he believes that the will of the people and the spirit of Aloha Aina has truly won, has spent the last 5 years teaching people like myself and Gary and other members of the community how to champion the next phase of what needs to happen at the Ka Iwi coast. Phil Esterman managed to get myself and others to pledge to stay vigilant and to ensure that even the mountainside, the Mauka of the Ka Iwi coast, will remain unspoiled. Hence, definitely no cabins on Ka Iwi. However, as recently as 2010, a new Utah-based landowner let it be known that he wants to develop a golf academy with a resort-type facility close to this property and up on the mountainside. These proposals, as well as any other development, would destroy the totality, the integrity of the Ka Iwi experience. And defenders are actively working with our elected officials to defend these lands in their natural state, like we have done so long and for many, many years. So the Mauka area is not designated conservation, and the potential for development of that land remains paramount concern for all of us in the community. I just want to highlight that the Lingle administration said that they would continue to work with the community to preserve the important part of what makes Hawaii so special. And as Phil Esterman closed, he said, if we lose the beauty of our coastline, you lose what it means to live in Hawaii. Unfortunately, the administration has changed, and we haven't been able to get a solid vote of confidence from our current governor that he'll continue on what the will of the people is. But we won't stop asking. And so, unfortunately, there remains the extensive private holdings among the Ka Iwi rugged mountain ridges that to this day we will consider a threat. In addition to that, I want to highlight that I have discovered what I consider a new threat. I don't quite know what the name of it is, but it's the DLNR's new land.
Act 55?
I consider that a threat.
Recreational
Act 55
plan?
is something that
Important ag lands where you change one and you get to develop another one.
No, Gil, Act 55?
That was SB 1555 that creates a public-private partnership. to
Public
develop
development.
State lands
Right.
for DLNR.
That is correct. So Act 55, in my opinion, is a threat. Thank you. Is a threat to the Ka Iwi coast. And in addition to that, you know, things like, do we need to impose parking fees so that we can make a little money? Do we need restrooms out there? How about putting some food kiosks so that someone can stop and have a hot dog and something hot to drink while they take in the vistas? That's all, in my opinion, a far stretch from what it means to keep the coastline in its natural state. In my opinion, the Ka Iwi coast is reminiscent of what we have at Cayena Point. So, looking forward, management issues for that coastline must be addressed. There's issues of access, there are issues of parking, and the degree of park development, as I had mentioned, the restoration of their wetlands that are there, the protection of the native species that are there, and the defense of the Ka Iwi's rugged Mauka lands. These struggles will require vigilance and sensitivity so that our children and their children will always have a place near the sea where nature rules. In closing, what started out as a public uprising against bad land planning and arrogant, with all due respect, politicians, was vindicated in the end by an overwhelming acknowledgement of the inherent value of the beautiful coastline.
The Ka Iwi Coast is a precious place for all of Hawaii and its people. The beauty of the Ka Iwi coastline and scenic view plain runs Mauka to Makai, from the mountains to the sea. It was through the efforts of thousands of Hawaii citizens that this scenic coastline was spared from development. The Ka Iwi Coast symbolizes the movement of Hawaii's people to preserve and protect the beauty and wonder of the special places of our islands. It is the preservation of the wild scenic coastline and the cultural ties Hawaiians have to the land and ocean that has brought our island people together to preserve and protect this special place. Koko Crater erupted in 32,000 BC. This eruption and flow formed Mauna Loa and Hawaii Kai. It is believed the first Hawaiians to East Oahu came in 947 AD. In the 1300s, the sisters of the chief Moikeha came to reside in Mauna Loa. This is known as the second migration of Hawaiians to the Hawaii Kai area. In 1795, Kamehameha I traveled from Molokai to Oahu during his conquest of the Hawaiian Islands. There are historians who believe Kamehameha landed on the shores of Sandy Beach. Over 200 years have passed since the time of Kamehameha's landing on the shores of East Oahu, and the Ka Iwi coastline remains unchanged in a world that has changed dramatically. The past 50 years have seen Honolulu grow from a small city into a major urban area famous as a resort destination for visitors from all over the world. Its growing population has spread into coastal areas and valleys that just a generation ago were open space, putting a strain on roads and other parts of Oahu's infrastructure. Nowhere is the change from city to country more striking than the sudden transition one feels when they reach Hanauma Bay, nestled along the coast just below Koko Crater and Koko Head. Beginning there lies one of Oahu's most cherished scenic resources, the 7 miles between Koko Head and Waimanalo, known as the Ka Iwi Scenic Shoreline. Driving out of Honolulu to the east, one is stunned by the sudden transition from city to a near wilderness of land and sea. Along this drive, one passes the Halona Blowhole, Sandy Beach, Queens Beach, and the Makapu'u Lighthouse with its view of Makapu'u Beach Park and the pali of the Waimanalo coastline with Kailua in the distance. This is the Ka Iwi coastline, from Koko Head Peninsula at the bottom to Makapu'u Point at the top, a scenic coast that attracts residents and visitors alike, who come here to sightsee, to fish, to explore the tide pools, to surf, and mostly just to be surrounded for a few hours by the natural environment. As of today, All of the areas shown here enjoy some degree of open space protection with either the city or state. In addition, the 30 acres just Mauka of the Coast Highway shown here in red, known as Golf Course 5 and 6, are preserved as a result of the Sandy Beach Initiative vote in 1988. In 1987 and 1988, a grassroots citizen effort collected 40,000 signatures to place an initiative measure on the ballot to protect these 30 acres. More recently, the area known then as Queens Beach became public land after another proposal for massive development resulted in another public outcry to protect this last unspoiled and sacred area to Hawaii's people. The Ka Iwi Action Council members worked with the government leaders to secure federal scenic highway funds to purchase the whole Makai side of the highway from Sandy Beach to Makapu'u. Today, residents and visitors continue to enjoy the scenic shoreline as they gaze toward the ocean and look towards the mountains. Unfortunately, there is once again a threat to the wild views these people see, this time as they look Mauka from the shoreline. A proposal to build cabins in this valley and near Kalama Valley looks, in the conceptual plans, like a resort. We must follow the Sandy Beach and Ka Iwi efforts to urge our decision makers to protect these two parcels that are so vital to our scenic views on the east end of Oahu, to the protections provided by being public lands. Let's work together to continue the strong efforts of thousands of people who have worked in years past to stop the threat of development of the last open wild areas on the east end of Oahu and put a stop to all proposals to develop our serene wilderness area. The preservation and protection of this shoreline ensures future generations of Hawaii's people the right to experience the natural beauty of the Ka Iwi coastline, from Mauka to Makai, from the mountains to the sea.